Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. And we all just need to take one short breath of relief. Because whilst everyone has been focused laser-like on the Hate Crime Act, there was another, less well-known, but potentially just as serious act being attempted to be squeezed through. And this would have curtailed freedoms of the press and put very massive controls on the media in Scotland. This is also an iniquitous kind of law. One of the basic freedoms in a Western democracy is an open and free press. Now, we do, generally speaking, have an open and free press in Britain. There was an attempt to close it down under the auspices of DORA, the Defence of the Realm Act in the First World War. However, the press rebelled, and realising how tight it was, the government relented, because they knew if they tried to absolutely control the press, they would lose control of the press, and the press would report everything. And so they came up with some kind of sort of agreed system. And that is where the D-notice comes in. The D-notice, of course, is not legally binding. And it is something that governments will occasionally put in, but only in the case of an ongoing emergency. They'll ask the press not to report certain things just until the emergency is resolved, for basically for safety reasons. Generally, that holds to be true. But that is really the only control a government has on press in this country. And thankfully that remains, because the SNP wanted to put even more control than that, but thankfully rejected. Let's take a look. So this note came in under, and it was slid in surreptitiously in another act. And it was the first line that they're going to try to use to utterly manipulate and control the media, to basically stop the media reporting on things that the SNP don't want reporting. You know, the shadiness of the things they're getting up to could be controlled. And the press don't want this, of course. But what they need to do is they can't go in wholeheartedly and say, bang, one lump sum. So they boil a frog. They salami slice it in. And the first time that this was picked up on was on the Children Care and Justice Bill, which we're going to take a look at. But not so much for the care of the children that's important, which is important, but for what they were trying to sort of sneak in under the Act. So, Children, Care and Justice Bill. The SNP looks set to drop plans for draconian controls on media freedom. This is from John McClellan. Now, currently, these controls are still in place, but they don't think they're going to be able to get this through with them in their place. And certainly the press will be all over them. If they attempt to muzzle the press, they will lose all the press in Scotland and everything will come out. They know it, and that's the only reason they're dropping it. They're not dropping it, of course, because they think it's right. Not a chance. They want control of the press. They just haven't worked out a way of doing it yet. Provisions in the Children Bill could have made it impossible to report the location of a Dunblane-style school shooting. With all the justifiable concern about the impact of the Hate Crime Act on freedom of expression, relatively little attention has been paid to two sections of the Children, Care and Justice Bill, which threatened 2 years in the slammer for identifying anyone under 18 involved in a crime or court case, be they the victim, the perpetrator or witnesses. Maybe because those who most likely end up in choky were reporters, and everyone does hate journalists, don't they? The alarm bells were not ringing as loudly as they were for the establishment of the new thought crime regime. Some senior Police Scotland officers still insist they are determined to enforce, despite yesterday's claims that a third of officers have yet to receive training. And indeed, it is that insistence on enforcing it which is the key to its downfall. But it isn't them insisting they're going to enforce it. The law itself says they must, by the law, enforce it. They must, by this law, investigate. However, the implications, he says, were no less serious, and not just for reporters, but for the basic right of people to know what is going on in their neighbourhoods without those keeping them informed facing the threat of a lengthy investigation at the very least. Now, this, of course, would only apply in Scotland. So a journalist could phone a friend in London or Manchester or wherever and say, look, this is the story, can you break it? And then it would go national news. Once it's broken and in the public domain, then they could heal the story. But it means they would lose their bylines, which is their reputation and their income. The other reason there hasn't been such a head of steam about sections 12 and 13 of the Children's Bill is that, apart from MSPs and the charities and youth organisations consulted on the bill's provisions, no one in the direct line of fire of these sections knew anything about it until it was almost too late to do anything about it before it became law. As I've argued in this column before, he says, it had the potential to spark criminal investigations into the reporting of incidents like the Dunblane primary school shooting. If a parent complained their child had been identified as a victim or a witness, even parental permission would not have sufficed, because as originally framed, the new law required a judge's approval. Control of the media is important when you are doing a dictatorial regime. Pravda, but in Scotland, every media output would be Pravda. Running the Scottish News Publishing Trade Association, I should have known about it. To my embarrassment, he said, I found out only through a chance conversation the same day it was going through the Scottish Parliament's Education Committee, where the legislation was supposed to be receiving line-by-line scrutiny. Media law specialists had heard about it a couple of weeks previously, but had no idea the sections were about to clear the committee stage. As few problems had been raised, the sections went through, and by the time the committee members realised there was an issue, it was too late. Ironically, concerns were flagged by Children and Young People Minister Natalie Donn, who accepted the sections perhaps went too far in inhibiting individual right to speak about their experience, and told the committee they would be fixed through amendments at stage 3, the last chance for alterations before being passed into law. So what they're saying is you would actually have a position, and this is the very weird position, where if this law had come through and an incident had happened and a reporter reported about a child involved, the reporter would have been breaking the law. But so would the child, because the child had been dealing with the reporter, and it was not the child's place to give permission to tell the story to the reporter, but it had to wait for a judge to approve for the child. And so if a child tells a reporter, then the child too has broken the law. If the child's parents had done this and told the story, the child's parents will have broken the law. No individual right, no individual freedom. A closed press. A press controlled by the justice system, which means in Scotland, a press ultimately controlled by the government. And what do we call regimes where the press is controlled by governments? Monolithic dictatorships. That's what the SNP have got planned. Of the many criticisms of the hate crime legislation, the SNP cannot be accused of failing to consult on its proposals. I gave evidence on behalf of newspaper publishers to the Justice Committee, which made the absence of consultation about the plan to criminalise the reporting of what until now would have been standard crime and court cases all the more extraordinary. It doesn't take much to come up with a conspiracy theory when it comes to Scottish government legislation, like the destruction of the property markets, looking very intended consequence of Greens co-leader Patrick Harvey's Heat in Buildings Bill, which I've talked about before and have said it is absolutely the destruction of the Scottish property market. It's coming 2027, it's gone, and it's deliberate because he hates the idea of people owning their own homes, little Marxist prick that he is. On this occasion, it does appear to be a good old-fashioned cock-up, he says. I don't think so. No, I definitely believe that this is conspiracy again. This, I think, is definitely control. This is definitely control of the press through backdoor legislation. Nobody had thought through the implications until late in the day, and letters started arriving in Miss Donn's inbox from media lawyers and journalists, and out of nowhere it threatened to become another front on what was beginning to feel like a very total war on press freedom. Now, if you go to war against the press, it is a fact that you will lose, because they've got the thing that you don't have. They've got access. They've got the press. They are the media. They are the ones ultimately that can stop reporting what you want them to report. They can start telling the real truth. and there is nothing you can do. You can threaten all you like, but reporters are happy to go to jail on the principle of press freedom, and have done many times, and all you'll end up doing is martyring these people, and yet you will have no control, because outside of your jurisdiction, the whole world, the journalistic world, will attack you, and it will be a feeding frenzy. And that's what these people are really scared of. They've finally realised it isn't that they're doing the right thing. They just don't want the feeding frenzy of the world's press to utterly destroy them. And I won't go through the rest of it. It's just a little bit more detail there, but it's the principle of this thing that, again, the SNP, shady, sleek it, trying to push a law of press control through, hopefully where no one can see it, and we'll just slide one in there, just with the children. Will somebody think of the children? And it'll be like, oh, the victims of crime, and it'll be something else, until eventually no story can be printed in the press without the judge signing off. And don't forget that the judiciary in Scotland is owned by the government. State-controlled media. Frightening, isn't it? Coming up. It is truly becoming Orwellian, isn't it? You're going to have the Ministry of Press, the Ministry of Truth, the Ministry of News, Newspeak. You'll only print what you're told to print. You, as the viewer, will only be shown what they want you to see. You'll be fed your diet of what they perceive to be correct and true. And ultimately 4 plus 4 will equal 5. Thank you very much for watching. Do please hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, leave a like, leave a comment. Please share the video. And until next time, stay safe, stay well, and I will speak to you later. Press willing. Bye.